G'day and welcome to another edition of CtrlCast. This is a platform where we are discussing the digitisation of the transport space. And our operators are moving from diesel and dust, brick and mortar to tech, IT solutions, AI and beyond. Today we have a very special guest. He is a dear friend of Control Fleet. He sits on the customer advisory board. He is a proper transport operator moving goods throughout SADC and very excited to get first-hand experience of how he is navigating in this digital realm. Rion Henning from Bidship. Welcome, Rion.
Hi, Rinko, how's it?
Let's talk Bidship. So tell us more about the business.
Yeah, so started the business in 2015 in the Cape. So I've got a history of freight forwarding. My background was freight forwarding, 25 years in the industry. Started 2002 in East London, worked for UTI, which is now DSV. Brilliant company, spent 10, 12 years with them. Moved to Cape Town 2011 and started the business officially. It was a bit of a rough time, but started the business 2015 while I was studying. Left the job, started the business, and I was studying. So that's the rough part of the business. But it's been a journey. Yeah. So we're 10 years old now. Started as, actually, interestingly enough, as a transport auction marketplace. Officially the first B2B one in South Africa. So ran that for about 4 years. Lots of fun, didn't make money. And that's why we decided we need to move on, but it wasn't that simple. As you know, obviously, tech is lovely, but to make money from it is really a challenge. So started doing the transactions on this platform, so reverse auction-based type platform. Did that for about probably 3 years. At the same time, we had an opportunity to move some volumes for some customers into Africa. And that's where our Africa speciality, the SADC focus actually came from. So first, we did it on the platform. We saw that didn't work as we wanted. Supply and demand in Africa is quite challenging at times, the influxes and the commodities that move. So brokered that for a while. And then in 2020, we bought our first truck. So that's when we went into a bit of diesel in our veins, and we decided let's dive in and buy our own truck. And we bought our first truck in March, end of March 2020, and a week later there was a COVID lockdown. So we put everything, all our savings. There was no facilities in place to buy trucks, so we bought this truck, we had it, there was a lockdown. Luckily for us, we moved food, and food into Africa wasn't too much of a challenge. And that's where our fleet journey started in terms of running specifically into Africa, and that's what we do today still. So today, obviously, a very different business. We've got our offices sit in Somerset West. We have a container operation that sits in Cape Town at the airport, close to the airport. And then in Johannesburg is where our main hub is, and our warehouse, where we run from there into cross-border or into Africa.
Love that introduction. It's common that when you speak to a transport operator, the story starts from a family origin. You know, dad started or family started, but you didn't. You went into tech, which is amazing. I mean, obviously from our perspective. But that pivot from that to going into the actual assets, was it hard? Was it just the opportunity that you've seen?
Yeah, it wasn't per se a real decision, as in it's a strategy and we've planned it for a couple of months. It was merely that while we were brokering, we were engaging with some of the larger customers. Obviously, let's call it the courting process is a bit longer, but that was one of the requirements. You need a fleet of trucks. So that was a commitment that we had to make from our side, and we didn't have to, but yeah, it was something that was a decision we made based on the type of contracts that we wanted to chase.
Lovely. And yourself, Rion, sole founder, just a little bit about the team dynamic?
Yeah, interesting team dynamic. So Bidship, when I started let's call it the reverse auction, the tech side of the business, in 2013, there was a guy, entrepreneur in Johannesburg, Rion Henning. He's the owner of Luxury Time watches. And he actually held a bit of the IP, so the code and the name. So when we launched, we wanted to register the name. Myself and the other founder was Andre Bauer. He works for Investec Bank now. And when we started and launched, we got this notice to say, listen, this is taken already. So we actually phoned Adrian, and I'll never forget the day we were sitting in my storeroom outside my house. That's where my first office was. And phoned him, and he said, listen, I tried this. I don't know enough about the industry. You guys try. I'm going to give it to you. And he gave it to us all for free. There was another a courier type tech site as well involved for a 10% stake in the business. So we took that. So at that stage, I was the founder, was the only person who was actively involved. The others weren't. And both those founders, or the guys that were part of the founding members, I bought them out about 2 years ago. And then now currently in terms of ownership, it's myself and Pierre, who's our operations director, who's also, so it's us, we're the two owners, yes.
It's such an entrepreneurial spirited story. I mean, levitating into a sector that it sounds like you not necessarily knew before, going from a tech aspect, but then literally going into the nuts and bolts and eventually buying the first truck. So let's go into that space, owning trucks. Yeah, what is it? How do you go from one truck to, I mean, how big the fleet is already now?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. I have a bit of a philosophy around the truck ownership part. So our business is, and that's my history, is an administrative type business. And that's why our offices sit in Somerset West. It's our little bit of an admin office. And the coalface operations sit, as I say, at other facilities in Cape Town and Johannesburg, employ the right people. They run with the nitty-gritty of the fleet. We obviously administer them, and from a data and a cost point of view, we manage the fleet. But that operation sits outside of the normal admin operation. But in general, it's a tough game. I mean, those assets they're incredibly expensive. People say to us often, yes, you guys are asset-based, and that's a challenge. And I think to myself, it is a challenge to be asset-based, but it's more of a commitment to buy a property, because it's a longer-term commitment than what we have on a truck. So it is a challenge, and I think the next step is growing the fleet. Until what point are you comfortable to grow the fleet? That's really the challenge in our industry. Do you want to be 100 strong? Because it's something you can do, but I think your agility starts to, fall by the wayside if you do go that size.
Let's unpack a bit. What type of operation do you serve? I know your trucks are all around SADC, but what's the core value proposition from Bidship?
So specialized as a cross-border transporter, mainly FMCG products, so fast-moving type of loads as well, not just the goods. That's really what we want to do, and we want to be the best in each of those markets we operate. Obviously, we specialize a bit. One of the things we specialize in is consolidation loads into these countries, so not a lot of people do that. It's a bit of a niche we can operate in. And other funny thing is we try and match our approach to supply chain to our customers, meaning that I won't do the best job I can if the customer doesn't have his permits in place, or the loads are slow, or those kind of things. We try and match ourselves with those customers to make sure we offer the best service into those countries. Yeah.
Going cross-border, I know many have tried, and some have definitely failed. What do you think does create that differentiator to say you properly know how to do cross-border and in regions that are far and wide?
So I think there's obviously a set of rules which you play by. One of them is that there will be challenges. That's one of the things that often there's some scary stories about what happens in what we do. But understanding the process, the borders, We have at a lot of the borders, we've got our own individuals, our own staff members that work there. So they get notified. I mean, a good example is your system that we use, the Control Fleet platform, is we give them the visibility into when those trucks are going to be at what point, so there's no delay. So the pressure, they have a certain KPI in terms of their performance for when the truck's in the area. But it's definitely, if you follow those rules, I think the products, the permit requirements, those things are all can be quite smooth. So sometimes we'll actually say to the customer, let us facilitate the import permit applications, because if they delayed, it's going to be my truck delayed. So we actually arrange a lot of those documents from this side in South Africa with our local representatives, because if you take that out of the equation, that variance, then you can do it a lot more on time. I almost want to say within schedule, and the parameters aren't wide then. So that really helps us to bring down our lead times. And the other thing, if you can do that, obviously your reliability for your customers again down in South Africa becomes a lot better.
Good.
Yeah.
For interest's sake, what are the regions you are serving? How far up in Africa do you go?
I joke. Sometimes I say wherever there's a road, we'll go. If the customer pays us enough, we'll do it. But we do up to Tanzania at the moment. So Dar es Salaam, we've even gone to Kilimanjaro. So that's the furthest we'll go. Our let's call it hotspots. Zambia is about 70% probably of what we do. Mozambique, right up to the north, Pemba, Namibia, Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland. So Malawi is one I forgot to mention. So those are the ones we really focus on. But Zambia being that core, the hub for us. That's our and that's where you get, because remember, any transport operator can run to anywhere, but what are your economies of scale? What is your network, your breakdowns, your tires, all of that? What is your services that you have? So Zambia is definitely our biggest market.
I can imagine all the built-up IP and experience you have as a team to get that right. One question, going cross-border, doing it well, I think many transporters are grappling with the driver, and sometimes the risk of that, but also the dependency. I mean, some of those trips, I can imagine how much days on road drivers must be before they actually get back to a depot. How does that impact have on your world and the driver specifically, and how have you conquered that, call it risk or opportunity?
Yeah, so the drivers, it's definitely first a mindset change or shift from their side. You can't a local driver that starts to drive this morning and ends tonight, obviously it's a different ball game. Ideally, you want to employ someone on the route. That's one of the tricks I think we learned quickly on, is that if you employ a driver that doesn't stay anywhere close to the route, it's frustrating for everyone. So and that allows us to give between loads him time off to be with the family, or he knows he's loading on a Tuesday, he's offloaded on a Friday, he's got a day that he can play with. I think that's probably one of the biggest things is having the drivers that can actually stay on the route. That works well for us. And then a driver that's got experience at borders helps a lot. Routes, knows where and what tolls, because obviously if you just look at Zambia, you operate in 4 different currencies from when we depart South Africa to when we get to Zambia. So you must give them the right currency at the right time and the right denomination, right amount. So it becomes challenging. Other thing which Africa is known for, which again relates to your driver, is there's a lot of theft on obviously the routes. Lucky for us, we haven't had any claims on insurance for theft, and that's just small things. We use your system for that. Is if you load in Johannesburg as an example, don't load this afternoon and then not make the border and have to stay overnight somewhere in the Northwest Province or wherever. Ask your custom to load you before 12, because then you can depart from Johannesburg, make the border, and get your Forex before the Forex office close. So it's little things like that. So we actually have as an example in your world, we've got an alert or watcher that tells us, does a driver stop on that Northwest route from Johannesburg? He mustn't stop there. He must load and go, because you cut your risk out if you're not staying overnight at certain places that are hotspots. So it's little things like that. It's
a very forward-looking view, right? You don't see the world in today and tomorrow. It's weeks at a time. And I guess also then what I hear from, what I admire from how you operate and what I hear is when you speak about the drivers, a lot of transporters unfortunately still have the stick mentality versus the carrot. I mean, you started by saying, pick a driver that's on that route. Because a happy driver wanting to go home and can get home is going to continue going back onto the road for weeks at end.
Yeah.
How does technology play at the driver space for you at this stage? Like starting to levitating on how digitization works in your world, like drivers specifically?
Yeah, so we obviously, it's a big change, and it's been a mind shift change for the drivers. They've obviously got driver apps now, which they need to operate with, upload PODs, upload documents. For us, from a compliance point of view, there's a lot of documents which must be captured in real time, and we use to analyze certain data, certain cost, fuel as an example, is one of them. Do price checks on suppliers, given certain currencies, and we obviously upload that into a financial system. So drivers and them accepting that digitization change is quite challenging, but it's something we've got right. I think it's challenging in the beginning, but I think given time and the drivers seeing the benefit of it, not having to come back to Johannesburg, manually scan a list of slips or explain them, they upload them on each transaction. And also from an instruction point of view, like as an example in your app, they know exactly where to go. There's no WhatsApp pin where they don't have signal. They know exactly where they need to be and what are the stops they need to be, where they need to put fuel in, what amount of fuel. So it makes that transparency is something that they've bought into as well. So that adoption for them becomes easier and easier. And another thing which is by no intention of our own is whenever we onboard a new driver, it's quite nice because automatically the other guys help them, which is something that I found very interesting because we've never asked one driver to say, listen, help this guy. We explain to them the system and then they work together and soon they understand it and with very limited back and forth. So that's quite nice.
Because you don't have the luxury of your drivers going back to a home base and having that interaction. Yeah. So initially, when you started, those initial hurdles, the kickback, how did you navigate through that period to get your initial drivers before that waterfall effect where they started showing each other?
Yeah, so I've got an interesting story when it comes to our driver selection. So our first ever driver, out 2 or 3 actually in 2020, I looked for what I thought was a good driver and I found 1 or 2 and they ended up being not so great in terms of my choices. And then we had the help of another transporter say, listen, they've got one guy that's good. He's now moving and we employed him. He was brilliant. And then we changed our strategy. We said, okay, you are in charge of, and new drivers are in charge of employing the other drivers. So we've got no say. Obviously, ultimately, we signed the document, but that has worked wonders because if they one driver vets another one and says, listen, this is the guy, he carries some responsibility. And I think it's not totally to the point of digitization, but I think that has helped because now that one driver, back to the previous point I made, he will help the other driver to onboard the system, understand it for minimal impact on our side. But that has made that adoption a lot easier for us.
So it's a shared accountability.
Yeah.
And then the momentum that it gets generated internally, that's amazing. Yeah. Many transporters want to get to where you are. But I think there are some practical speed bumps, if you want, that doesn't get them past that. I think some of them are devices, how to manage data. I mean, in your world, multiple regional SIM card or connectivity, and then obviously the driver and how practical, how quick and easy this app must be. Do you mind just sharing some of those, how you got over some of those speed bumps?
Yeah, so we've tried both, meaning that we've issued devices to drivers. We still do a bit of that. That's just from if the customer expects the POD at a certain time, the quality of device, the camera is key. But how we manage that currently is we give the drivers an allowance per trip for airtime in all those countries we operate through. So they need to have data. Some of it is not as time sensitive. Then they can upload an offline environment, etc., etc. But the airtime is probably the easiest one you can do. So you give them data or cash for data at certain points, and we expect them then to have connectivity, and that works for us.
Wonderful. Let's bring it a bit back to the operations heart. It might be slightly different for you coming from entrepreneurial spirit and a tech initial drive. Many transport operators struggle getting the culture right in the team to be digital first. What has been your secret in terms of either appointing new team members or getting the team dynamic thinking of digitization in your transport space?
Yeah, I think one of the things is having a young crew. It's obviously they enjoy it. So a lot of we've got some really good operators that are young, and they've been with us for 6 or 7 or 8 years. So that helps a lot. They understand the business. And if you have these people for a longer period of time and they have sensed or done it in the manual form, as soon as you digitize it, it actually becomes easier, and they see that value, and you show them that value before you implement it. I think that's the key. If you say to them, don't just implement this, if you make them part of that process, say, this is what we're implementing, look how easy it's going to be. One example for us is we had a manual before we onboarded with yourselves. We had a manual, we call it a fleet performance type document, where each person should capture their loads. Is it invoiced? Is it not invoiced? And that was like our Bible, our heartbeat. And the first thing Vichard from your side did was he automated that for us. He said, listen, here's all the data you want. I give it to you in a webbook. And that's the start for us of a lot of our own data analysis that we do. And the drivers, as an example, when they upload a receipt, they don't just upload a receipt, they upload it against an active control fleet order. And that helps that visualization of that data again. It's not just thousands of receipts, it's that once for that specific load. So that helps us a lot. But back to the adoption of it again internally, I think the people understanding what we're implementing and them being part of that process just gets that buy-in a lot sooner.
Creating that why and then that mutual outcome from the start. I think in that journey, if you can get some low-hanging fruits, if you want, in your world, changing the Bible fairly quickly onto something that was similar but automated.
Yeah, and I think there's no doubt that if you use technology to speed things up, and that's our mindset, is to make it easier for everyone. As an example, we have some of our invoicing is totally automated. Again, based on the data we get from you, we do one verification on our side and it invoices the shipment automatically. Now, there used to be someone who sat and invoiced those files, and it would take almost days because it was almost a couple of hundred invoices a week. So it's a lot to manually do. And to type in a container number, as an example, 7 or 8 times or 10 times in the shipment journey versus now we do it once in your system, that pulls through to everything. So that, I mean, it creates efficiency. It makes everyone's jobs a bit easier.
So Rion, I want to take you back pre-digitization and where you are today. How did you navigate to the decision of what your business needed to digitize, and how did you get to a selection? There's so many transporters which I think would resonate with exactly that stage of where you were.
I think we obviously knew that we need to digitize what we were currently doing, just to do it a bit easier, less small data sitting all over the show. So what was interesting when we were looking, we saw a lot of solutions with a lot of, let's call it bells and whistles and noise around them. And what we wanted was in there, but it wasn't the core function of the platform or the system. So when we saw what Control Fleet offered, it spoke clearly to what we wanted, was visibility at an order level. And that made the decision a lot easier for us. When we saw that, we knew, because all of the other offerings out there that tried to be too much and didn't have that as the core focus. And I think when we engaged the first time, and from what I saw in the market before we engaged, that was what you guys were offering plainly, and that helped us to focus on that as a first phase.
I guess the fact that you, to a degree, had some idea of what you specifically wanted, visibility, real time, gave you at least a direction on where to start searching.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it made it quite clear. The rest of and we understood, and that was the conversation we've had before, was that it needed to be bespoke. I didn't want a system that can give me everything, because then it's everything that's 20% to what we needed. But we understood we wanted something specific, and that helped us narrow it down quite easily.
Today we find ourselves in 2026 mid a slight world crisis when it comes to fuel. When we talk about diesel and dust and one of the probably the biggest running cost in your business, how do you navigate this diesel world at this stage?
It's been a massive challenge. Everyone knows our cost as a transporter. Roughly 40% of our cost has gone up by 60 or 70%. So it's been really crazy. Luckily for us, we have always had fuel supply challenges in Africa. So it's not new to us to get to a station, there's no fuel, you have to wait. So we've had a couple of ways we've managed that. I think one of them is having long-term contracts with fuel suppliers has helped us a lot to make sure that you're going to get fuel. Whenever you are there, you're going to get fuel. You're a valued customer of theirs. And then wherever you encounter a route that there's challenges with fuel. Malawi is an example. Fuel is over 65 Rand a litre if you can get. So there we've had to adapt a bit. We carry extra fuel on certain of our assets. We actually identify them on the Control Fleet platform as belly trailers. And that trailer will be used to feed 2 or 3 other trucks. So we'll have a truck go to Malawi. That truck will have its extra fuel that carries in its belly, and that same trailer can disperse fuel to 2 or 3 other trucks that are also going up that don't carry that equipment. So it's just about adapting to that. But as I say, it's always been a challenge for us. The price of diesel, a whole different ball game, as I mentioned there. That is, there's going to be a change in the volumes. I mean, you can't have such a massive increase in the price of diesel and volumes aren't adjusted. So what we're seeing in the market is that certain products that it made sense to transport into Africa or into Zambia don't make sense yet. They can't compete with a local product, as an example. So I think the volumes are going to be a bit softer over the next while until fuel normalizes. We just hope that it comes down. But yeah, it's been a challenge.
It's interesting. One aspect of how you navigate through this is the fact that you've tested a muscle and you've practiced a way of resilience. And this is just another way of the resilience you now have to navigate through. And yeah, sometimes that experience plays a large role. When it comes to fuel, there's a lot of technology in that space that assists, but can also be quite noisy. Are you making use of technology specifically around your TMS when it comes to fuel?
We are. So we've got 2 major fuel suppliers, and they electronically send us data. So we use that data. So from a procurement point of view, no, we have a set contract, but we use that data in our system. We do, so drivers upload on the app, they upload a receipt. We check from that, we can check fuel consumption. We can even do service scheduling, because remember, you've got kilometers for trucks and trailers. We do price checks of that data in this platform, so your price is right. And that ultimately at a transaction level can go into our accounting system. So every single transaction's there, the price check's done. Again, something before our big drive to digitize, that was all done manually, and there was a lot of errors, and there's currencies involved, et cetera, et cetera. So that digitization of our fuel checking has really added a lot of value.
Good.
We do.
I have to ask you, EVs, electronification of vehicles, where does that rank either in your cross-border business or the container business? Is it viable? How deep are you in thinking about making that practical?
About 2 years ago, that's all I wanted to do. So I wanted to almost quit my day job and just focus on that as part of the business. So it was something I was really keen to do. One of the challenges is obviously cost of these EVs in terms of, a rig now is, I don't know, 2.5 million rand. The EV rig is 8 or 9 million rand, a proper one. One of the major other challenges is load shedding in Africa. So as an example, until end of last year, Zambia had 20 hours of load shedding a day. And that was for a year before that. So it's not any day. And the times that the power is on is between 2 and 4 in the morning, as an example. So no one can use it anyway. So it was a consideration, even to a point where, I was thinking along the lines of, joining into these solar farms that are going up all over the show, and even into Africa. There's also some of them. So directly charging with them. But it's, I think there's a massive future for it. It's just, our current business model now, it'll be very difficult to get these vehicles effectively moving, because you can't stop for a day or two, to charge in a country where the power is off or there's load shedding. So it is it's an exciting part. And if you look at the recent scenario with fuel shortages and the price of fuel, it's becoming more realistic, and a lot of people are going to think about it a lot harder.
And your local operation, is that something where you feel you could actually start doing some sort of trial operation on that?
We could. The distances we cover here are a lot less, probably around 3,000 kilometers a month. So there's a business case for it. Again, the income level versus the cost of the asset might be the big challenge, if it's going to be feasible at all. But it is definitely something that, as I say, 2 years ago, it sparked my interest. It's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, it sounded like your entrepreneurial spirit was ignited again.
Definitely, it's something that I think is. I think it became more apparent recently with this whole crisis around fuel.
And it's not going to go away. Yeah. We are fortunate to have you on our customer advisory board, and the insight that you share there has really been, priceless. Being involved with the suppliers that build the technology that your business uses and depends on, do you feel it's been of value for you to have an opportunity to get close, or does the outcome of what that product has to deliver, is that still obviously the biggest value proposition? As long as I'm still gaining that return out of what the product is supposed to do, that is why the value. That's why I continue to use it.
Yes. Well, the advisory board, that I love. It's great. It's nice to see what I, as an example, might think is a massive challenge in our industry. The other guys might not see, or vice versa. So it's quite nice to see how diverse our views are on certain things, and obviously certain functionality. And that there's a lot of value in that for me, to see what are the challenges they're facing, and how you guys have a challenging role in that, because you sit now and get feedback from 4 or 5 different transporters, say this is the only thing we need from each of them. So, and what do you do? So it is tricky, but the value we see in that, it's immense. Obviously, it's quite nice, and to be involved in ultimately what you guys put out into the market, given everyone's input, is quite nice. And I need to recognize you guys there, the speed at which you guys are making these changes is incredible. So that's quite nice to see. We have a session here, and a couple of weeks later, you guys are ready to test something. So that's quite impressive.
Your operation is obviously mature or well rehearsed in navigating the world of data. You talk about being able to decipher a lot of data for insights. Artificial intelligence, AI, where does it currently fit in your business, and where does it really create value?
Yeah, it's a buzzword. Look, I think it's important for us, the technology side. A lot of the coding we can do, we obviously would use AI. It's a lot quicker, a lot faster, and a lot cheaper than your traditional type of development of technology. There's no doubt that a business has to embrace it. I think, let me give you an example. For accountants, it's not in our industry, it's too complicated sometimes. But as an accountant, if you want to be competitive in 5 years, you need to embrace it, because you need 4 clerks, as an example, to do the data analysis that AI can do quite quickly. You can then do the rest of the summaries and the official part of it. If you're not going to be efficient if you don't use it, and we all need to look for areas in our business where we do. And the goal is not ultimately to employ less people. It's obviously to make everyone more efficient, have more time to get in front of the customer and deliver a great service to them. I think that's one of our type of objectives, but and become a bit more lean in the way we do things. And we know one of the areas where we're using it is in quite a couple of areas, but the logic behind it is to create capacity. So if we can create capacity, we can take on more work and grow with a limited amount of admin requirements around us. And I'm sure as a business owner yourself, the savings in terms of using AI, you can quantify quite easily if you understand that workflow and the capacity of each person and your payroll bill. If you look at that, you can really save. An example, it's a crazy discussion I had with someone the other day, but I say if you can automate one role that costs, as an example, 20,000 Rand a month, and I hope you and I are roughly the same age. I'm probably a bit older than you. If you retire in 20, 25 years, that one salary per month that you could save in terms of just optimizing something will be worth 25 million Rand. Just one salary at 25,000 Rand. So it's not just about saving the salary, it's also about creating capacity as lean as you can. And then that's the reward.
Excellent. So as customary, we get to the section where we ask each of our guests to be bold and look into the future. And we call that the freight forecast. So if you don't mind, would you mind looking in the crystal ball 2 to 3, 5 years beyond? How does this transport space look like when it comes to digitization?
Yeah, I think route planning, those things, the complexities in that, I think that'll be obviously a lot more automated than it is today. If I can speak specifically of the area where we're operating, cross-border, Africa, SADC, it's growing immensely. I mean, the growth rates, I think there's going to be, from us sitting at the tip of Africa, I think there's going to be a lot of growth there. And for us, it's not always good because a lot of the competitors are going to follow up into Africa. But yeah, I think the freight volumes are going to grow. There's a lot of focus on Africa, and there has been for a lot of years. A lot of the markets are saturated in the rest of the world. So I think a lot of companies are looking to Africa. So I think there's a very bright future for us in transport, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Great.
Counter to that, anything in terms of debugging, perceptions, freight foes that you might want to share?
I think on the AI topic, I think that it's going to take all our jobs. I think that it'll be tools used to be more efficient. I can't see it unless I'm missing something, that it's going to take all our jobs. I mean, there's the planning, so doing tasks, it's brilliant at, but the logic, I think that the planning team has, as an example, in conjunction with the platform like yours, I think that is superior.
Wonderful. Now we get to the part, we call it the rapid fire round. So this only requires one word or very short sentences, answers, if you don't mind. Obviously no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
So given your extensive knowledge and expertise within Africa, I have to start the first one with, what is your favorite destination in Africa to visit?
Zambia.
Do you travel by air or road?
Both, but road is fun. You just need to deal with the borders then.
What is your favorite border crossing for your operations?
Kulpatak, the best border. From South Africa to Botswana, at least.
What is the ideal size of fleet for you to maintain a civil lifestyle and a proper operation at the same time?
I think around 40 or 50 trucks. Would love that to be 100 and stretch a bit, but yeah, I think the comfortable one is probably where we are now.
Thank you, Rion. This has really been insightful. It is evident that you have earned your 1,000-hour stripes doing what you do especially going into the African cross-border operation, pivoting into another business, containers. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. If you could be so kind to just give us, the aspiring transporters starting to either go digital, what piece of advice would you leave them with?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, but I think just philosophy in general is action. So, and that's why I enjoy you guys and your logo, your execute like never before. I mean, it speaks a lot about how you do things, and that's one of our mottos too. We want to be perfect. We want to do it as quickly as possible. So, especially on your digital journey, go do it, take action, try things, and see where it takes you. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But thinking and planning around it without actually trying it, it's going to leave you nowhere.
Take that first step.
Take the step.
And that brings an end to another episode of CtrlCast, and getting feedback practically firsthand of a world-class operator and how they have navigated and continue to navigate this exciting but yet challenging world of digitization. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to unpack these topics and how transport operators are navigating from diesel and dust and going into technology and beyond. Thank you.